are the living dead, soulless bodies that come from beyond the grave to walk the earth again, without feelings, will, or judgment. Prisoners of a unique world whose possible existence captures our imagination while filling us with fear. Members of a religion that claims they are resurrected by sorcerers who control them as slaves. They are called zombies. This man maintains he remembers his own funeral, buried in a grave while his family wept over what they thought was his death. Nearly 20 years later, he would return to his village and live among his neighbors as a zombie. A voodoo priest claims there are sorcerers who cast spells that turn people into zombies. A Harvard scientist says he met zombies when he journeyed to the Caribbean and found the secrets of the zombie poison. Are zombies real? An entire religion includes zombies as part of its belief system. Some authorities claim there is scientific evidence to substantiate their existence. For others, zombies are a phenomenon that remains unexplained. In the spring of 1980, this man returned to his hometown in Haiti. He said his name was Clairvius Narcisse. His appearance sent shockwaves through the town. Many of the villagers knew Narcisse and remembered that he had died nearly 20 years before. Narcisse himself agreed that he had returned from the dead. This is his remarkable story. Clairvius Narcisse had been a prosperous landowner who flaunted his wealth and would not share it with the family. He fathered children by several women and refused to support the babies or their mothers. Members of his family frowned on his lifestyle, which was also contrary to the religious beliefs of the community, the practice of voodoo. Voodoo is the religion of nearly all of Haiti's 7 million inhabitants, and millions more in other parts of the world, including Africa and the United States.
Voodoo actually means, literally speaking, spirit, the great spirit of God. But the great spirit of God being seen as an axis to everything people know how to do and also know how not to do, meaning it's the base of morality, and this is what it means to them.
Voodoo exerts a powerful influence in Haitian society. And Narcisse's behavior offended his family, both religiously and morally. His most reprehensible act was trying to sell off a piece of his family's farmland without their permission. This action branded Narcisse a criminal under the Voodoo Code of Ethics.
That piece of land was not supposed to be divided by traditional law. So in fact, by so doing, he would have put in peril the life of many, many people.
Because Haiti is so poor, taking land illegally is considered a crime, as serious as taking a life. Cases like these are often decided by special voodoo courts that exist apart from the conventional justice system. Presiding over these courts are sorcerers, known as bokurs, black magicians, with powers apart from hougans, conventional priests like Max Beauvoir. By profession, Beauvoir is a biochemical engineer, educated at Cornell University and the Sorbonne in Paris. He also comes from a line of voodoo priests and succeeded his grandfather as a high priest in Haiti.
A Hougan teaches morals. It teaches people really how to live, but it doesn't really fit into the category of keepers of the morality. It's an act of police, it's an act of justice, it's an act of secret society. And they are the people who have that responsibility.
The brother of Clervius Narcisse filed a claim against him for his disreputable behavior in the village. The trial began a short time later in the Voodoo Court of Justice.
He was tried by his peers, and there was a group of peers that was there for his trial. And not only that, but at that court of justice, unanimity is required. It includes, among what we call the juries, members of his own family.
The secret society found Narcisse guilty and sentenced him to the ultimate punishment.
And the capital punishment is zombification. Zombification is a way to extract a criminal from the society without killing them, but yet to put them in a position where they can never annoy anymore the society.
There are people who believe that a curse or spell has been placed upon them, and that these people believe that because of that reason they are losing their souls, which means, in fact, that their souls is being drawn out of their bodies little by little, which means then that they will probably become dead.
How long was he in the coffin, and what did he feel and think while he was in there?
Next, Clervius Narcisse tells the incredible story of how he remembers his own funeral and how he returned from the grave. Can a person return from the dead as a zombie? Haitian landowner Clervius Narcisse claimed he did. That nearly 20 years after his funeral, he reappeared in his village, very much alive. He said he had been made into a zombie, cursed by voodoo sorcerers for crimes against society. On April 30th, 1962, Narcisse was admitted to the American-run Albert Schweitzer Hospital near his village. He complained of chills, fever, and other symptoms. His condition deteriorated rapidly, and 3 days later, on May 2nd, he was pronounced dead by 2 doctors. The hospital prepared a death certificate signed by both physicians. Also on the document was a fingerprint of one of Narcisse's sisters, showing she was an official witness to his death. His body was taken to the morgue, where it was kept for 20 hours in a cold storage room.
He could hear everything, but he couldn't talk.
So he heard the doctor say this man is dead?
Yes, and he heard his sister weeping, and he even heard when they were in the cemetery.
The next day, May 3rd, Clervius Narcisse's funeral. His coffin was nailed shut and lowered into the ground at the cemetery in the Haitian style. A crude pine box covered by a pile of stones. Ten days later, the family placed a heavy concrete memorial slab over the grave. In interviews following his return, however, Narcisse maintained he was fully aware of the entire episode.
He could hear the comments of everyone around him. People were crying and lamentating around him. He heard all of that.
Voodoo priest Max Beauvoir spoke with Narcisse several times after he reappeared in the village. Clervius told the priest that during the funeral, he felt as if he were a spirit, floating above his own grave, looking down as his coffin was lowered into the ground.
He heard everything when he was put in the coffin, when he was put in the grave, and he was showing you a scar here. It was a nail from his coffin.
How long was he in the coffin, and what did he feel and think while he was in there?
Pendant dans ce cercueil-là, ça a été senti. He was suffering from the nail. That's the only thing he could remember.
As Narcisse described the process, the funeral was only one step on the path to zombification.
He knew that he was not dead. He knew all the time that he was not going to die either, because like every Haitian, He's aware of what zombification is, that it was a transition state that he was going through until he was lifted up from the ground.
Some time after his burial, Narcisse said he didn't know if it was hours or days. He heard some men above him at the cemetery. Led by a Beaucour, or sorcerer, they dug up Narcisse's grave. And removed him from his wooden coffin. They gave him a potion to drink, which helped revive him and restore his ability to move his limbs.
It is from there that he became a zombie, was lifted out, and then put back into circulations, not public circulations, but at least to the custody of some people who took care of him as a zombie.
Although the zombie Narcisse could now move about again, he had been stripped of his soul, what Haitians call his petit bon ange, which literally means the good little angel.
In a case where you are a zombie and you no longer have absolutely no control of yourself at all, and that someone else has a control of you or has control over your petit bon ange, then that's something that probably is much worse than death itself. It'd be better for the petit bon ange to leave the body completely and to be elsewhere than to be controlled by someone else within that body.
The Beaucour who freed Narcisse from the grave now enslaved him. Narcisse said he was taken to another part of the country and put to work on a plantation with other zombies.
He was working on a plantation. He was planting corn, yam, coffee, all kind of
Just working as a slave?
As a slave.
After 2 years of brutal treatment, however, he ran into some good fortune.
During his years of zombification, I think an event occurred, I don't recall exactly, where his keeper died. And at that point, he regained some of his willpower that allowed him and many others around him to escape.
Other accounts say one of the zombies killed the slave master or keeper, freeing the group, which scattered into the countryside. While there was no further word of the others, Narcisse returned to his old village 18 years after his funeral, much to the amazement of his neighbors.
Well, everybody knew him. He was a well-known individual. He was well-known by his family, for sure. Was well-known by his friends. And when he came back and found to that marketplace, the entire marketplace knew him.
Clairvius's sister, Angelina, came to the marketplace when she heard her brother had returned. When he greeted her, he used a childhood nickname only family members would know. Her first reaction was to push her brother away, partly from shock, partly from the knowledge he was a criminal. Eventually, his family as well as his neighbors allowed him to live in the village.
To see him again is always a surprise. And it's the same for all zombies, because in fact they are known dead person and they are known to have gone for good. However, the punishment remains.
Even though he had been freed from slavery, in the eyes of the Voodoo Court of Justice, Narcisse was still a criminal. For this reason, he said he did not return to the village until he heard the brother who brought the original charges against him had died. Although his sister took him in, Narcisse would not regain his status in the community and was not allowed to earn a living. At the same time, he became something of a celebrity. Word spread quickly about the return of an actual zombie.
Nobody had seen a zombie before. Everybody knew of somebody else, who knew somebody else who had get into account, who have known a zombie at one time or another, but nobody had any first-hand account.
That situation changed with the stories of Clairvius Narcisse. In the several interviews he gave to the press and TV networks from around the world, he talked at length about his experiences as a zombie.
151.
There were 151 zombies working for that specific source.
Incredible, really. And how long did he have to work there as a slave then?
Combien de temps il était qu'à Boko?
10 ans.
He stayed for 2 years.
Doctors examined him. Psychiatrists studied him. No one could fully discount his story. And few in his village had any doubt this was the same man who had supposedly died almost 20 years before. Could Clervius Narcisse have been buried alive, resurrected, and enslaved on a plantation work gang for years? His claims provoke no end of speculation and disbelief. Was Narcisse really the man he claimed to be?
Well, I think it's probably a case of mistaken identity. But you also have to remember that Clervius was in cold storage for 20-some hours. And it would have been impossible for Clervius to have been alive. And biologically, it would have been an impossibility for him to have been put in cold storage for so long and then to remain alive.
Death certificates can be forged. Medical records still need to be interpreted. DNA evidence allowed O.J. Simpson to walk off on a murder charge. So I think my point here is that objective documentation and even so-called science remains largely a matter of interpretation.
Critics contend those who believe Narcisse's story are giving too much credence to voodoo myths.
All of the stories that are told about zombies are simply either part of a mythology, or those who have claimed to have seen zombies have told stories, details of which are always missing.
Haitian-born religion professor Dr. Leslie de Mongla sees a difference between believing in voodoo and believing in the existence of zombies. He says zombies are part of voodoo mythology, stories that have been passed among generations. According to Dr. de Mongla, there are always key details missing in stories of actual zombie sightings.
There's never been any psychiatric tests on Clervius to find out whether, in fact, he had been a person who had been mentally healthy, for one thing. And the other is that there is a possibility with oral tradition that if Clervius was told these things, that there's a possibility he might have believed them to have actually taken place. But there is absolutely no proof, definitive scientific proof, based on DNA tests and also on finger printing that show clearly and without a doubt that Clervius was that person who died and was the person who was then later raised as a zombie.
I know Dr. de Mongla is a nice guy, but I think he has grown up in foreign countries, and he didn't get the chance to get first-hand account of zombies, and that's probably what he's trying to say.
This voodoo priest has no doubts about Clervius Narcisse's identity.
I've met the whole family, I know them well, and we took him back into their own custody at that point, but of course, once a zombie, you remain a zombie. And even at the end, Clervius Narcisse was a zombie.
Next, a Harvard scientist journeys to Haiti to investigate the case of Clervius Narcisse. Could there be a scientific explanation for Narcisse's extraordinary claims? In 1980, the appearance in Haiti of a man named Clervius Narcisse, who claimed he was a zombie, drew worldwide attention. Serious scientists now came to Haiti to look into this phenomenon.
I think that's what was so exciting about it, because it then, in some sense, cracked the mirror of disbelief and opened up the possibility that this was a phenomenon that really did exist and was worthy of serious scientific inquiry.
Beginning in 1982, Dr. Wade Davis, a specialist in ethnobotany and biology at Harvard University, made 4 trips to Haiti. His mission? Find out if the zombie phenomenon could withstand scientific inquiry. And if it did, find the secret to making a zombie.
Like so many people then, we didn't take this seriously, particularly. But when you got to Haiti and you examined the evidence that these physicians had come up with over this case of Narcisse, it was quite provocative, if not compelling.
Davis soon realized he would need to learn more about Haitian culture if he was to truly understand Clervius Narcisse's story.
When I went to Haiti, I knew very little about voodoo, nothing about zombies, but I found myself very quickly moving through a kind of surrealistic cultural landscape where the overwhelming power of the spiritual faith was palatable, where in Haiti people walk in and out of their spiritual realm with an ease and impunity that's always astonished the ethnographic observer.
The Western mind thinks of voodoo, they always think of zombies, or they think of sticking pins in dolls, or casting spells on people, but that is not what the religion really is about at all. The word itself in Haiti means a religion where people gather as a family to revere their spirits, and that's all the word means.
The religion of voodoo came to the French colony of Haiti with the hundreds of thousands of Africans brought over during the slave trade of the 1600s and 1700s. By 1803, however, the slaves had staged a successful revolt, driven out the French, and established an independent Haitian republic. Voodoo flourished in the newly free country. It would be another 100 years before Western culture would reconnect with Haiti. In 1915, an unstable political situation forced President Woodrow Wilson to send U.S. Marines to Haiti as a peacekeeping force. The primitive culture and unusual religious practices of voodoo led many of the soldiers to write books about the country that were either wildly exaggerated or simply not true.
And those books which had names like Cannibal Cousins, Black Baghdad, Voodoo Fire in Haiti, A Puritan in Voodoo Land, The Magic Island, there was a slew of these books, all of them full of children bred for the cauldron, zombies crawling out of the grave to attack people, voodoo pins and needles and dolls that don't even exist.
In certain parts of Haiti, so the natives will tell you, are thousands of zombies, or dead men, who have been taken from their graves and put to work in the cane fields.
Whether they were true or not, accounts of these strange practices in this strange land intrigued American readers. They eagerly devoured the material, even though most of it was produced by non-Haitians who had little or no understanding of the voodoo religion.
I think many of these people concocted this notion of zombieism. I mean, at least the way in which it was presented. It's certainly part of the oral tradition, part of the mythology of the religion. But I think they probably must have heard of it and then made up these stories.
Zombies? Yes, they are my servants.
By the 1940s, the books led to movies that reached an even wider audience. Americans flocked to the theaters to watch films that had less to do with actual voodoo than with fantastic accounts, fueled by the imagination of Hollywood.
Now, the zombie in the North American imagination is more like a boogeyman or Freddy from Friday the 13th, someone who goes around and eats people and kills people. It's definitely a negative stereotype. And as hard as we in sort of professional anthropology try to dismantle that stereotype and replace it with a more accurate appreciation of zombieism and voodoo, it never seems to stick.
Wade Davis was among the scientists and scholars who studied the true nature of the Haitian culture. He soon found that, like many other religions, voodoo provided a source of comfort and support for the overwhelmingly poor people of Haiti.
Voodoo, in its essence, is a religion that has a dynamic relationship between the living and the dead. A religion where the individual does not simply go to church and speak about God. He or she dances in the temple and becomes God.
As in other religions, the notion of the conflict between good and evil is an integral part of voodoo. The two forces are represented by the difference between the priests, the Hougans, like Max Beauvoir, and the sorcerers, or black magicians, the Beaucours.
In Haiti, the fear is not of zombies, as the pulp fiction and the movies would imply, but of becoming one. Because to become a zombie is to lose your will, your humanness, your essence.
For believers, the oral tradition kept the images of zombies alive. The appearance of Clervius Narcisse, however, gave the legend a new dimension. Here was someone in public view who claimed he was a zombie. The story he told was convincing, even to outsiders like Wade Davis.
Narcisse struck me as very calm in the way that he described the events that had occurred to him, casual in a sense, in the way that he embraced the situation that to us was almost phantasmagoric. The evidence was very strong in suggesting that Narcisse had actually gone through this terrible passage, and in that sense it was difficult to know exactly what was going on.
Davis knew the only way to confirm Narcisse's story was to discover the secrets of the zombie curse. For that, he would have to meet a Beaucour, the sorcerer, to find out his methods. The Beaucour held the key to the theory that had brought Davis to Haiti in the first place, that there was a special potion given to victims to create a zombie state. Next, the scientists searched for the zombie potion. In 1982, Harvard scientist Wade Davis traveled to Haiti to investigate claims that an actual zombie had come back from the grave. Zombies, usually dismissed as fanciful fiction or religious folklore, were now being considered a scientific possibility.
The Clervius Narcisse case forced us to take zombies seriously, and if you didn't believe in magic, there had to be a material explanation for the fact that apparently he was put into a state of apparent death so profound that it fooled Western-trained physicians. What was the potion that was doing that?
Davis felt the way to track down this supposed zombie potion was to go directly to the sorcerers, or the Beaucours who administered the zombie curse.
The Beaucour, who is like a chief of police, so to speak, the one who keeps the morality of the society all over the country. That's what they call the secret society. And they are the one who act like executioners.
Max Beauvoir helped Davis gain access to the voodoo secret societies. Beauvoir introduced Wade to a Beaucour named Marcel Pierre, who reputedly could make the zombie potion. Marcel was a shadowy figure rumored to have been a member of the Tonton Macoute, the notorious death squad under the regime of Papa Doc, Francois Duvalier in the 1950s and 60s. Even though Marcel was well known in the area for making zombie potions, at first he was reluctant to cooperate with the American scientists' mission, even for a fee.
So I said, Marcel, it's not a matter of whether you make good poison or not. I know you can make good poison. I'm just saying that what you made me 2 weeks ago was garbage, and you have a choice. You can send me away with garbage and lose the potential to make lots of money from us, or you can give me the real thing, and we'll be back in the morning to talk about it. And when I went back the next morning, what turned out to be the proper ingredients were drying in the clothesline.
Davis took the new potion from Marcel Pierre, then looked to find other Beaucours and collect samples of potions from them. He collected a total of 8 samples from 4 separate sources and found their ingredients varied according to the Beaucour who made them. In general, they consisted of human remains, native plants, animals, and fish. Davis took the samples back to the U.S. for analysis.
I found that the consistent ingredient was one of a number of species of a marine fish that had a very powerful neurotoxin in it called tetrodotoxin.
The fish was the pufferfish, exotic creatures found in the tropical waters of the Caribbean and in the ocean off the coast of Japan. They take in water and swell up to make themselves more difficult for their enemies to consume. Some varieties, known as porcupine fish, have spines on their bodies as a further deterrent. All, however, contain an ultimate defense within, one of the most powerful poisons known to man.
The tetrodotoxin is so powerful that a lethal dose of the pure drug would bounce in the head of a pin. It's been said to be about 160,000 times stronger as an anesthetic than cocaine, 1,000 times stronger than sodium cyanide.
Amazingly, The puffer is also a gourmet dish in Asia. Connoisseurs savor the taste of the meat and the lightheadedness it brings from trace amounts of the poison.
The amount of the poison in the body of the puffer increases with the reproductive season. In other words, when they start, let's say, in around December, then the gonads increase in size and activity until they hit about March or April, and at that time, you got the highest level of the poison.
The fish is so toxic, it must be prepared by specially licensed chefs. Even so, there are hundreds of cases of people dying from tetrodotoxin poisoning as a result of eating pufferfish that was not prepared correctly. This link turned out to be the basis for Wade Davis's research into the mystery of the zombie poison.
One of the things that broke open the hypothesis was that in Japan and throughout the South Pacific, in cases totally unrelated, of course, to anything going on in Haiti, there were case after case in the medical literature that described exactly what happened to someone who succumbed to tetrodotoxin poisoning.
Tetrodotoxin kills by shutting down the nervous system, paralyzing the victim and stopping his breathing. Non-lethal doses of the poison can produce temporary paralysis and diminished breathing that can even fool doctors into thinking a victim is dead. These symptoms are consistent with the concept of zombification.
The unique thing about the poison is that it can knock out practically all of the muscles of the body, but the individual who is suffering from puffer poison may be fully alert, but can't move a muscle, can't blink an eye, can't speak, but know what's going on. They're just as stiff as a board. So they would be misdiagnosed as dead.
There are cases of people nailed into their coffins by mistake. In Japan, by folk custom, you're actually laid out by your grave for 3 days to make sure you're really dead.
Using the pufferfish, a bokur could make a potion with enough tetrodotoxin to immobilize a victim, who would appear dead even to a doctor.
My hypothesis was built on a single empirical observation, and that was that the sorcerers in Haiti had found in their environment a natural product, a series of fish, that we know for a fact contain at certain times a year enough tetrodotoxin to do the deed. That's what broke open the investigation.
Wade Davis wrote numerous articles publicizing his theories, while Hollywood made a motion picture based on one of his books, The Serpent and the Rainbow. His conclusions, though, remain controversial. Could pufferfish poison unlock the secret to the zombie curse? Or was there another explanation for the zombie phenomenon? Critics contend that the puffer poison is so fickle that a voodoo bokur would never be able to create the death-like state.
I don't believe that the bokur, the zombie maker, is sophisticated enough to measure exactly the amount of chemical that will be used in a dosage that they're administering to that person to keep that person in a state of lethargy.
The bokors don't even know about tetrodotoxin. They're untrained in pharmacology. And even a trained pharmacologist will have a great deal of difficulty determining exactly what amount would cause profound paralysis, but not death.
For Wade Davis, the fact that the toxin might be able to produce this temporary paralysis, if only on rare occasions, bears out his theories.
Nobody has ever said that there's an assembly line creating zombies in Haiti. On the contrary, for this physical zombie to be made would involve a confluence of very unusual biological, chemical, and social phenomenon. The key to its power in the imagination of the Haitian, its key as a social sanction, is not on how often it occurs, that apparently it can occur, either now or in the past.
Davis's research has put the issue of the zombie poison in scientific journals as well as the general media. Some of Davis's critics, however, have serious doubts about his methods as well as his conclusions.
You just simply cannot take a story that is told to you and just simply accept it as a fact. And when you have a society that relies and depends so much on oral tradition, and a society that is so much geared toward stories and mythologies and stories about their own mythology, you have to be very careful about the stories that you hear. And they have to be tested in various communities. So one thing you hear as a researcher in one community, you must carry it somewhere else and test it to see whether, in fact, these things are true.
Davis's supporters, like Bruce Halstead, contend some victims may be completely unaffected by the potion. Others might return from the paralysis alive and mentally intact. Still others might suffer permanent nerve damage or die.
Whether this is the precise way that zombies are produced, I don't think Wade knows. I certainly don't know. But it's not wrong. I don't think it's, I think his hypotheses were pretty good.
For a voodoo believer, the scientific controversy behind the zombie poison is irrelevant. While Max Beauvoir agrees the powder is part of the ritual, he says it has little to do with the actual process of creating a zombie.
Those powders, they do act as chemicals, this is true. But more than that, zombification is a spiritual act. It's one spirit which is removed from the person, the intellect, what we call the tibonage.
Next, the story of a young woman found alive more than 3 years after her funeral. Haiti is home to millions of people who practice voodoo, a religion that believes in the existence of zombies. Could this mean that zombies can be found scattered throughout the Haitian countryside? Even believers concede this is not likely. Most claims of zombification are easily disproved. In 1979, this woman was discovered wandering in the marketplace of a small Haitian village. Her name was Francina Ilias, better known as T-Femme. The villagers believed she had undergone zombification.
I happen to know T-Femme, to have met her. She was also a well-known zombie.
3 years earlier in 1976, T-Femme had been admitted to a hospital in her hometown, complaining of digestive problems. She was treated and released, but reportedly died at home a few days later. A local magistrate verified her death. Authorities prepared a death certificate, and she was buried in the village cemetery. After T-Femme reappeared, she was taken to a nearby clinic for treatment. Unlike Clervius Narcisse, the purported zombie who appeared healthy and mentally alert after his return, T-Femme seemed mentally unstable. She stared blankly and barely spoke.
T-Femme was exemplified the caricature of the zombie. She appeared catatonic, reclusive, retiring, shuffling her feet.
Wade Davis went to T-Femme's former village and spoke with townspeople about her. They said she had passed through the ground, meaning she had been given the zombie poison, probably by her jealous husband, who had reason to suspect she had been unfaithful.
She was engaged in a very tender age into prostitution, which was really not welcomed by our society. And it is from there that she was really taken away.
Her mother, while denying T-Femme had done anything wrong, confirmed the woman was her daughter, recognizing her by a scar on her forehead. Sometime later, T-Femme's grave was opened. No body was found. It contained only rocks.
I have never seen a zombie. And I've done more than 25 years of field research in the backcountry all over Haiti. And I've walked during the day, I've walked at night, I've walked through cemeteries, I've walked everywhere in the country, and I have never seen a zombie. I was born and raised there, and I've never seen a zombie.
Was T-Femme a true zombie? Many observers contend she is a classic illustration of a victim of either mental illness or mistaken identity.
Tifam is a very good example. She was brought back to the community, and people recognized her. But again, there was no DNA test. There was nothing at all that was done to show, in fact, that Tifam was that person who had died and was actually buried.
Wade Davis finds the claims about Tifam far less compelling than those about Clervius Narcisse.
I would put the Tifam case very much into the sort of the list of the dozens of cases that pop up in the popular literature where the notion of zombie is imposed on an individual, but the actual history of that individual, whether it's a matter of psychiatric disorder or whether it's a social disorder, is very unclear.
Davis does feel, however, that the Haitians' willingness to believe Tifam is a zombie indicates the culture's acceptance of the entire zombie phenomenon. And the ritual of zombification has a profound effect on the individual, whether the potion has any physical effect or not.
When they realize that, they have become a victim, say, of a sorcerer's curse, or they've had their soul stolen, we must remember that it's highly possible that in their case, those beliefs could actually affect the body in which the mind is that bears them.
Once a Davis ally, Dr. C.Y. Cow has become his most severe critic. Cow, who has done tetrodotoxin research since 1962, claims Davis knew he had no proof of his theories and fabricated an elaborate scenario to support them.
It's a fraud. It's based on knowingly perpetrated with the full knowledge that there was not enough tetrodotoxin to cause the scenario that he actually promulgated.
Dr. Cow believes any field research of the effects of tetrodotoxin has to be confirmed by obtaining the same results in a laboratory. Wade Davis disagrees.
His attitude was, if you can't produce zombie rats, you somehow have to be telling a falsehood. Well, my task was not to produce zombie rats. It was to try to understand, in all of its ramifications, historical, psychological, spiritual, political, and ethnographic, and pharmacological, the ramifications of an amazing cultural phenomenon.
Dr. Cow charges that few of the pufferfish samples Davis brought back from Haiti contain any tetrodotoxin, while those that did not have enough to cause the paralysis that Davis claims would result in zombification.
The key aspect that has to be addressed is not the amount of toxin in any one of those limited set of samples, but the empirical observation that the sorcerers in Haiti have identified in their environment a natural product that we know for a fact contains, at certain times of the year, enough tetrodotoxin to make someone appear to be dead, even though that person returns to the realm of the living.
Davis's supporters stress that no scientist should be condemned simply for advancing a hypothesis.
Scads of other people are also convinced that zombies do exist. He went down there with the express purpose of trying to find out if zombification does take place, then what is it that brings this about? So I think Wade Davis is a very honest man. I have nothing but respect for the man.
The fact that those samples came back with tetrodotoxin in them was in fact highly significant. It proved that tetrodotoxin was in these fish. It proved that these fish were used by the sorcerers, and it proved that these powders could, if the right fish were used at the right time of the year, have enough tetrodotoxin conceivably. That was highly significant.
Bruce Halstead contends that it is too easy to dismiss the zombie legend as simply that, a legend. The presence of this lethal poison might even suggest that the voodoo Beaucours know something about tetrodotoxin that Western-trained scientists do not.
My experience with a lot of these groups that we've worked with around the world. They're a lot sharper than you think. They're keen observers. They have a good understanding of what you can do where to get the maximum of the biological activity. So I would never underrate these people. They may be uneducated, but they're not stupid.
Clervius Narcisse has since died, this time a confirmed natural death. Francina Ilias, or T-Femme, is reported to have died as well. Since their emergence nearly 20 years ago, no other zombies, self-proclaimed or otherwise, have come forward. Voodoo still thrives in Haiti. So does the belief in zombies. Many believe Wade Davis's research has unraveled some of the mysteries surrounding the zombie. Will more zombies come forward? Will undeniable scientific proof surface? Or will the world of the zombie remain one of legend and unexplained?